Hey guys, welcome back. I'm going to start out with a bit of a shop update so you know some of the things that have been going on lately. It sounds like I may finally get X231's crankshaft back from the machine shop within the next week. So in preparation for getting that installed, I did take the block off the engine stand and I have it positioned on its side on this small roll around cart here. This is exactly how I'm going to keep it until I get the crankshaft fully in. To install the crankshaft, it has to come in through the side cover opening and actually be put into the bell housing a ways in order to get the rear main bearing retainer put on. With the block on the engine stand, it just really closed this area off too much and didn't afford the type of room I would need to do most of that work. So to get the crankshaft installed, this is just how the block is going to sit until that gets done. So that kind of brings me to the engine stand. I'm just going to talk about this real quick. You might notice it looks a lot different from the earlier videos. I decided that as long as X231's engine block was off of it, I'd take this opportunity to upgrade it a little bit. It's just an old stand that my dad built out of some repurposed scrap steel about 25 years ago. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but you know, it's handled every engine we've rebuilt in the last 25 years, so I kind of like it. I see no reason to replace it. I did install 3 new swivel casters on it. The old ones were steel and had rather small wheels, and it didn't roll very well, made a lot of noise across the floor. So I found 3 more modern casters with larger diameter wheels that also have the wheel locks, so I can really put the brakes on this thing when I don't want it rolling around. And you might also remember it just kind of had a Rust-Oleum rusty metal primer finish. As long as I had that finish disturbed from putting the new casters on, I cleaned the rest of it up and just kind of gave everything a fresh coat of red paint. Just dressed it up, made it look a little better. And while I was at it, I mocked up these 2 pieces real quick. They're going to act as a front support brace for X231's engine block once I get it put back on the stand and it starts taking on weight from reassembly. It's not that I don't trust the stand to accommodate that engine, it's just that considering those parts are so irreplaceable, I just really don't want to have anything happen that might make it fall 3 feet and hit the floor and break something. So that front brace is just going to be a little bit of insurance. Of course, once I get the front brace put on, it's going to have 2 attachment points. It's going to be really solid, but I won't be able to rotate it around anymore. That really won't be a problem because once I get the crankshaft in, I'll just put some of the more minor components on, like the governor pieces, the oil pump, stuff like that. And by that point, I really won't have a need to roll it over or rotate it anymore anyway. So having it locked in its upright position really isn't going to pose a problem. So I got all these pieces painted. I'm just basically watching paint dry on these. That's really all that's been happening on this half of the shop. Let's take a walk over to the other bench and have a look at some of the things that have been going on over there. So all of these pieces have been fully reconditioned at this point. I'll start with this one. This is the rear main bearing housing. This is the piece I briefly mentioned earlier that has to be installed in the crankshaft once the crankshaft is initially placed in the block and brought back into the bell housing a ways. Nothing special about this piece. It is a production ZB component. I did clean everything up. I verified the gasket surfaces were flat and clean, reconditioned the hardware. Everything has good threads, new lock washers, and I also cleaned up the rear main seal retainer and got it ready for a new felt sealing ring for when that time comes. And once again, we have X231's cylinders. Like I said in the last video, the machine shop bored these out to 20 thousandths oversize to match the new pistons. They put a real nice crosshatch on the cylinder walls and verified the deck surfaces were flat. I gave both of these a really good final cleaning, flushed out the water jackets, removed the last of the honing grit from the cylinders, got new soft plugs put in, and replaced all of the pipe plugs where they were needed. So these pieces are both finished and ready to be put back on the engine. So now I'm working on getting the new pistons, pins, and rings assembled to the reconditioned connecting rods. I have number 1 done already. I did go ahead and just put that one together to make sure everything was going to fit and was going to work and there were going to be no problems. I've checked the gap on all these ring sets already. I just assigned each set to a cylinder, checked all the gaps in that cylinder. Although the new cylinders are all the same size, I'm just picky about things like that. So this one's for cylinder 2, this one's for 3, here's 4, and I will just match them with their corresponding rod numbers. I'll get the camera set up on the stand here and we'll put one together real quick. So obviously the first part of any engine reassembly is starting with clean parts. and brand new piston right out of the box, I'll clean it anyway, I don't care. Same goes for the pin, the keepers, and especially these reconditioned rods. And my go-to method for cleaning, doing the final cleaning on most engine components, is just hot soapy water. And I know it sounds really low tech, but honestly it does a better job of removing the fine metallic contamination, the grit left over from the reconditioning process, than most any solvent-based cleaner out there. These solvents just don't seem to get the really fine particles like water will. So I'll get these scrubbed down with a brush and get them good and clean, rinse them off again just with really hot water, and then dry them with compressed air. The last step would be putting a light film of thin oil on your corrosion sensitive areas to prevent any kind of flash rust, and you're pretty much good to go. One more thing that's overlooked quite a bit is cleaning brand new piston rings. Now, I've had some brand new rings right out of the package that have been so dirty they'll turn a white rag literally black. So a lot of these are cast iron, a lot of them are ground during their manufacturing process, and sometimes they're cleaned really well before they're packaged, sometimes they're not. So that's one other area that you really want to watch out for. So with that out of the way, let's get to some reassembly. So there's kind of two ways to do this. Normally I will assemble the piston to the rod first and then clamp the whole assembly in the vise using the soft jaws and have it down low enough so the piston cannot pivot side to side, and then I'll get all the rings put on. For working in front of the camera, it's going to be easiest if I just get the piston ringed up first and then put the rod on later. So I'll start by putting one of the C-clips in the piston just to kind of act as a backstop for when I put the pin in. They are quite stiff. Rotate it around, get full oil. Got that in and happy. Next we'll start with the rings. So these new piston ring sets happen to be made up of several different types of rings. So I have the instruction sheet handy that tells me how to position each type of ring based on what type it is. Keeping that out here so I don't mess anything up. Other than that, things are pretty self-explanatory. Like any other kit, they have the rings labeled 4th groove, 3rd groove, 2nd groove, and top groove. So it's pretty hard to mess that up. Start with the 4th groove, which is the oil control. This one has the little backup spring that goes behind the ring, so that's pretty idiot proof. Just kind of get that stretched over and put in the groove. This oil control ring can go either side up, really doesn't matter. And I definitely prefer using these ring installing tools to open the ring and get it down over the top of the piston. I was really worried the first time I used one of these, thinking I was going to break a ring, but they seem to support them well enough that you really don't have any problem. You can really get them opened up a long way. Get them aligned with their groove. And they go right on just like that. Now we'll do the ring that's supposed to go in the 3rd groove, right above the oil control ring that I just put on. And this has a very hard to see shoulder on the outside of it, which has to be positioned down. So that's how I'll put it on here. Again, use the expander tool. Get it all lined up. 3rd ring on, just like that. So we'll do the same with the ring that goes in the 2nd groove, and it has a shoulder or a grooved portion on the inside which has to be positioned up. So just do the same thing. Get it in the tool, stretch it out, slide it over the piston, and right on. And to finish up the top ring, it also has an inside groove that also has to be positioned up, just like the last one I put on. Stretch it over, line it up, click it in, and all the rings are installed. Very simple. So the last part is to get the rod assembled to the piston. I've already got some engine assembly lube in the wrist pin bushing area of the rod and in the pin bores in the piston. So I will just get the pin nice and coated with this stuff. And don't knock me too hard for wearing gloves. It's just mainly to keep me from getting my hands full of this stuff and putting fingerprints all over everything. So Bit of a rag here to wipe off some of the excess. And luckily these pins are just a light slip fit in the pistons and the rods, so that makes it a lot easier to install without any tools. Just have to get everything lined up properly, and it drifts right in. Again with the rag to wipe off any excess. And the last step is to put the other C-clip in. And just like that, we've got another rod assembled. 2 more of these to go and I'll be done with this part of it. So here are the 4 completed piston and rod assemblies, all fully reconditioned back to spec and ready for installation. And I also took some time to get a quick coat of Prairie Gold paint on the 2 adjoining faces of these cylinder sets. Once they are reassembled back onto the block, these 2 ends will be virtually right up against one another, which would have made it very difficult to get much for primer or paint over the exposed metal surfaces. So I went ahead and got that done in advance. Now if you follow me back over the engine block, we will wrap this video up where I have another bit of good news to share with you guys. So we finally got the crankshaft back from the machine shop today, and I'm really glad to have this piece back again. It's the one key component I've been waiting for to start any real reassembly in the engine at all, so just having it here is going to help me out a lot. All the journals cleaned up well at 20 thousandths under. It's got a lot of machine shop dirt on it yet, so it's going to have to undergo a thorough cleaning. That's actually what I'm going to jump into as soon as I turn the camera off here. Guys, by the next video, you'll start to see some real progress happening here again. I'm excited to start getting some real pieces put back into the engine block and start getting this thing back together after about a decade of being apart. So if you like what you see here in the videos, don't be afraid to hit the like button down below, and please subscribe to the channel. Every little bit helps. So that's been enough talking for me, guys. As always, I thank you for watching. I got work to do, so I'll see you next time.